Hey guys, what's going on? Jeanette Bruce here. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about this Skywars tournament that Hypixel has hosted over the past couple days. Now obviously they announced the tournament a few weeks ago and it just ended around 2 days ago from this point of recording. But I'm going to be talking about some of the issues that I have with the Skywars tournament and Hypixel hosting it, and talk about why Hypixel probably should have fixed the way they're operating and fixed their anti-cheat and stuff of that sort before they hosted this tournament, because obviously it's going to skew the leaderboards and all that stuff with all the cheaters, and talk a little bit about how bad that cheater problem actually is on the tournament. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get right into it. This is the problems with the Skywars tournament. Now, Hypixel has hosted tournaments in the past before. For example, they hosted a Bedwars tournament, which was their first tournament, and they've also hosted a Blitz SG tournament. However, this tournament was a little bit different because it was actually Skywars, and everyone who watches this channel knows how bad the cheater problem is on ranked Skywars, and you can see where this is going. Now, I'm not really going to go too in-depth into the root of the cheater problem on Skywars, but it pretty much comes down to the fact that, number one, it's really easy to die in Skywars because you're surrounded by Void, and number two, you only get one life. For example, Bed Wars is surrounded by Void, but you can respawn if you have a bed, so it's less rage-inducing. And when people tend to rage on video games, they tend to want to beat the opponent next time, and if they can't legitimately, they're obviously going to download cheats. And this environment fosters cheating, and that's why we have a kind of cesspool of cheaters which exist on ranked Skywars. Now, I want you guys for a minute to imagine the environment in ranked Skywars and how cheater-filled it is and how rage-inducing it is and how much it wants to make you cheat. I mean, Refraction downloaded Vape and used it because of ranked Skywars, or at least he claims, which we're assuming that that's true. Take that situation, take that environment, and scale it up to the scale of an entire tournament with 500 players. Now, with rewards, with leaderboards, everything. Scale that up, and there you go. That's the Skywars tournament. It's way worse than ranked Skywars because you're no longer just competing for, the normal rewards. You're competing for special rewards like the Blaze Pet, etc., which aren't usually available in regular Skywars. So the incentive there to cheat and to be better is actually greater in the tournament than it is in ranked Skywars, believe it or not. So you can see from what I've said right now, this environment is heavily conducive to cheaters, and the problem with this is that now you're going to attract a large number of cheaters into this tournament, and in this tournament, the number of cheaters is going to negatively affect the result. And what I mean by that is the fact that the tournament is leaderboard based, which means that you have like a ranking system. So you have 1, 2, 3 get a certain reward, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc., get a certain reward. And the problem is that when you have people who are cheating to get to those positions, they're going to be taking up a spot that would have been filled by a legitimate player. For example, if a player is at number 7, for example, and then a cheater passes them, they're now number 8 because the cheater is now number 7. However, they're rightfully number 7 because they weren't cheating, but the cheater cheated to get to number 7. So it makes it very unfair for legitimate players, and it skews the leaderboard and makes it unlegitimate. These cheaters also have a direct advantage over players, obviously, because the tournament itself is based on combat, and that was what the cheats were made for, to give an advantage in combat. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to create an environment where it's extremely easy for cheaters to get on this leaderboard, and it's just going to screw over legitimate players. Now, I want to make this crystal clear. I'm not suggesting that Hypixel is just never going to be able to fix this problem. Now, obviously, there are problems in this realm which are not fixable because you would require a client-side anti-cheat. However, I do think that Hypixel could definitely do more to try to curtail the cheater problem, because it's not just like there are people using 3.5 blocks of reach, which by itself is pretty blatant. It's not like that was a thing, or it wasn't like people were just using aim assist or velocity. There were literal B-hoppers in the highest bracket and the highest ranking of the tournament. Now, this was evidenced by Technoblade's video where he made a montage of the B-hoppers in the Grandmasters tournament, and that's a very small proportion of the actual B-hoppers that existed. There were a huge amount, and obviously these B-hoppers are going to be banned, which is going to cause legitimate players to move up in position. But let me tell you what the problem with that solution is. So say you have a legitimate player who's just playing and fights a B-Hopper, accused a B-Hopper a few times because the B-Hopper is disguised. Obviously, everyone's nicked at Grandmaster, so you don't know who's cheating, who's legit, and you end up fighting this B-Hopper a bunch of times. And what ends up happening is you get killed over and over and over again, and you move down 5 positions. Say everyone's kind of clustered, you move down 5 positions because you just fight this B-Hopper over and over again. Now, when the B-Hopper gets banned, everyone under him moves up a position. But you move down 5 positions due to the B-Hopper killing you, which means that you actually moved down 4 positions, which means that a legitimate player would still suffer even if the B-Hoppers get banned. So pretty much the only solution to this problem is just to ban the blatant cheaters before they can even get on the leaderboard, because they're not going to be taking up a space by a legitimate player or knocking any legitimate players down if they're not getting on the leaderboard in the first place. And overall, I understand that Hypixel's Watchdog has to get enough evidence on the player to ban them, but when you're B-hopping, I mean, I don't see any reason why you can't ban for that within the first, 10 seconds of the player doing it. I mean, 10 seconds at 20 ticks a second, that's over 200 ticks of information to work with. You can easily find out if someone's B-hopping. I mean, I have friends who are developers, and they've made anti-cheat checks that can do that perfectly fine. There's no issue with it, and there's no false bans, there's no issue with it whatsoever. It's pretty straightforward to make, and I'm not sure why Hypixel couldn't have even set this up for the tournament, let alone for their server. So that's the main problem with the tournament. It's the fact that there are so many cheaters and it's completely unregulated, and I haven't even touched on the closet cheater problem. And closet cheaters are even more of a problem than blatant cheaters, because now that you're occupying a space which would have been taken up by a legitimate player, it's not like all the players below you are going to move up a position. It's more like you're basically going to be in that position forever, and you're going to get the rewards associated with it without actually earning them. Now, Hypixel has never really been a competitive server. Now, I understand now they want to kind of gear towards that audience with the Duels tournament and, Blitz SG and stuff of that sort, competitive game modes they've added over the past 2 years or so. But the problem is that their infrastructure to support this competitive game mode is not there. It does not exist yet, and therefore they should not be pushing competitive game modes with an infrastructure that does not foster competitive play. Take the example of Badlion. Now, Badlion did tournaments because they had a strong server-side anti-cheat for the time known as G-Cheat. Now, of course, G-Cheat nowadays isn't very good because it hasn't been updated in years and years and years, but back in the day, it was very sufficient for detecting blatant cheaters and even some closet cheaters, and it was very good at doing that. So, because Badlion had this infrastructure set up, I think that it's perfectly okay that they're going to be hosting tournaments and stuff of that sort. But the problem is, Hypixel does not have an anti-cheat that functions like G-Cheat. Watchdog takes way too long to ban cheaters. The staff members don't seem like they're all focusing on the tournament. That's a very important factor. We want a lot of staff spectating the tournament. And also, Watchdog seems to have problems with it, which don't even stem from it banning too slowly. I mean, I've seen some client developers message me literal exploits for Watchdog, and they're like the stupidest and easiest to patch things I have ever heard of in my entire life. And obviously, you can say, oh, well, Tenebris, you're not a developer. How do you know this is easy to patch? Well, because the exploit is easy to patch for some of my friends who are developers who aren't being funded by a giant server corporation, which should be able to hire really good developers. And I understand that Hypixel is not the same as some of the servers my friends might be working for, because obviously it's a huge network, there's a lot of different factors that you have to take into account, there's different versions and stuff of that sort, but with the amount of money and the amount of support and the amount of developers that Hypixel has, they could definitely pull something off that would be spectacular. Why haven't they? I don't know. But the thing that people don't realize is the fact that the anti-cheat should be modular. You should be able to toggle on and off different checks depending on what game mode you're in. I mean, that would be epic and really good infrastructure to set up, and I assume that they probably have that set up, which means that a check that's on Turbo Kart Racers or whatever doesn't need to be on the tournament and vice versa. So if you have a check that's on the tournament that detects B-hoppers but, happens to flag people in TNT Jump or whatever game mode you want to flag people in for speed accidentally, you don't need to turn it on in TNT Jump. I don't know what the problem is. Why can't Hypixel just set something up that does that? So yeah, they could easily set up a system where you would have no issue with false banning players in different game modes when you're only turning on the check for a specific game mode. The Skywars tournament had a very specific set of items, a specific set of rules. There was no TNT jumping, I don't believe at least, and there was no crazy, obviously there's effects and stuff you have to take into account, like the frog potion and stuff of that sort, but there's nothing that would flag a speed check, and even if there is something that that would flag a speed check, it's Hypixel's fault and Hypixel's decision to preemptively make a check, which, you know, accounts for these potential false bans and ban B-hoppers very quickly. Yeah, guys, I'm just kind of sad. I feel like Hypixel should not be doing this because I don't think that they have the infrastructure set up to do it. I mean, obviously, they are banning cheaters. I'm saying that they are not doing enough. They aren't doing enough to curtail the cheater problem, and it's unfortunate. And I think that they should really focus on that before they host another tournament, because this is just going to happen. If you put someone in another Skywars tournament, they're going to be inclined to cheat, just like everyone who has played the Skywars tournament has encountered cheaters. I mean, I queued the Skywars tournament, and I encountered like 2 cheaters in a row in the Masters division, or Masters bracket, or whatever it's called, and I just decided not to play because it was so discouraging, because I just kept fighting the same cheaters, or different cheaters, over and over and over again, and I just couldn't play. It wasn't based off skill, it was based off who had the best Ghost Client settings, which won't get you banned. And that's pretty much the crux of my argument. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to get rid of the cheater problem 100%, but I think that Hypixel can do a lot more than what they're doing right now, and that's just my personal view on it. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.